And it doesn't need to be like the existence of it doesn't need to be secret. Like maybe you don't have to talk about the weapon systems and stuff, but come on, we should know this is basic stuff about our foreign policy. We have a base in an allied country that we're not even allowed to know about. So I was very frustrated about that. And so I go and I end up doing a story interviewing people that had worked there and finding out.
How long before this had Glenn Greenwald left?
Maybe like a year or two prior, I think.
Did you talk to Glenn like when he was leaving or deciding?
Yeah, we've been friendly the whole time.
Yeah, what was his logic there? Because he co-founded this place.
Yeah, I mean, I think he was very hurt by it because there's this impression it's like, oh, everyone's leaving. It's like some New York Times reporter was like, you know, these guys are making money by leaving and going independent or whatever. It's like, do you realize like how destabilizing it is to like not have a steady paycheck and like have no idea what's going to happen? It's like people don't do this stuff unless you really feel like you have no choice. Glenn really tried to make it work. And, you know, my sense both in his public remarks and talking to him is that he wanted it to work and it just didn't. And it's like you get to it's kind of like a divorce. It's like, do you know how bad things have to get for somebody to that doesn't usually happen. I think there's this impression that it's like, oh, somebody saw dollar signs and they can go and make a bunch of money on their own. It's like it's much easier to just stay in a thing that works, you know, than go off and as I'm sure you know, running something is a headache. There's so much administrative stuff that's unrelated to the like actual, you know, the direct work that caused you to want to get into it, that people don't make that jump for better or worse until it's like they really have to. And that's kind of how I felt at that point.
Yeah, so you waited it out a while, but you also knew the other side too. You had done a lot of things.
That definitely helped. There wasn't that fear factor of like, oh, what will it be like? Can I actually do it? Because I knew that I did do freelancing for a period of time, and then I was better known at that point, so it was much easier. I have a lot of sympathy for people that find themselves in tough, you know, situation. And I was saying before, like a lot of these corporate outlets, they have good people who maybe don't want to make that jump because of what we're talking about now.
Are these the years you were living in D.C., by the way?
Yeah.
When you were with the Intercept?
Exactly, yeah. I was at the D.C. Bureau.
Oh, and I mean, so what, 4 or 5 years there? Something
like that, yeah.
And those were crazy 4 or 5 years you were there, too. Like, that's a nuts time.
I was there for January 6th, and I remember the choppers flying overhead, and just, it was crazy, yeah.
Yeah, you're, like, in the long haul, that's probably such a good move for you because you can say you've been in it and you've seen it.
That's the thing.
You're not just talking from the outside.
Exactly. And you know, the thing is, some of it was I had to remove the mystique because I remember when I was younger, being in Wisconsin, I'm kind of like, man, I'm really missing out on all this stuff, all these great sources. And you go there and you realize there's some things that are useful, but so much of it. I'll give you an example. One time I did a story on what is it called? There was a U.S. military base in Jordan along the border of Syria where 3 service members were killed at the beginning of last year, I think it was. And I think it was called, what was it? I can't remember the name of the base.
Joe will get it.
But
he's got it. I see it.
Yeah, Tower 22.
Tower 22.
Yeah, and it had never been disclosed that the base was there. First we're hearing about it is that guys die, which is enraging because it's like we don't even, and it doesn't need to be, like the existence of it doesn't need to be secret. Like maybe you don't have to talk about the weapon systems and stuff, but come on, we should know this is basic stuff about our foreign policy. We have a base in an allied country that we're not even allowed to know about. So I was very frustrated about that. And so I go and I end up doing a story interviewing people that had worked there and finding out that the suicide drone that had killed these 3 people, they didn't have anti-air in place even. And so I hear this and I'm thinking, you're right next to, you know, these Iranian proxies and you don't have an anti-drone technology after all this money that we've spent on this. I couldn't believe, and so I go, and naturally, it just sounds too insane to be true. So I'm going trying to check with other people to verify it. You always want to go to you want to give the other side a chance to be like, knock it down so that you know it's true. So I go to the Pentagon. A Pentagon spokesperson starts talking to me. He says, and I said, look, don't you have a what's it called? An itemized list or an inventory of what material you have there so that you can say, here's what we have, here's what we don't have. He goes, here's the crazy thing. I don't actually know what we have there. And I said, what? He says, the Pentagon is a mess. It's like this huge sprawling institution. I should have known this because this is always been. This is my point.
They were missing $2 trillion the day before 9/11.
Exactly right. Yeah, and this was probably weeks before the every year they have their budget that they're supposed to go through.
But they fail.
And they fail the audit. Literally, they've never passed an audit.
Nothing to see here, bro.
Yeah. So I'm thinking, is this guy bullshitting me? Because he's a spokesperson. So I go start calling on very well connected general. He says to me, yeah, we don't have a clear, like we might have an idea of some things, maybe even a lot of things, but we don't know everything that's at these. It's like all these buckets of information. It's mismanaged. And this is a far flung base that's not going to be as staffed up and formalized as like, UCOM or something. Mm-hmm. So it ends up being true, and I report it, and then afterwards, the Washington Post, I think they verified that afterwards, corroborated it. But it was just this learning experience, like, wow, the movies where it's just Jason Bourne, you pull up the computer and you look, and they've got access to everything. It's like they've got a lot of stuff, but that doesn't mean that it's all communicating with each other and that it's coordinated and that there's any kind of organization.
Yeah, that's a pattern. I mean, you've probably picked on it fucking 50 million times more than I have, just because you've covered stories for so many years. But even like in me just doing episodes here with a handful of people here and there who had access to the Pentagon or something like that, the theme that they all come away with as to why it works, and I'm also going to double entendre this and say this is why it doesn't work, is compartmentalization. So like even the Secretary of Defense, he don't even know fucking 90% of the shit that's happening.
This is the problem with secrecy. It doesn't just hurt the public, it hurts the government too, because they can't communicate with each other. And you see this again. And 9/11 is like the most high-profile example of it. But every time something goes wrong, it's like some group wasn't communicating with some other, faction within government. So this is the point I always try to make. Transparency would help the bureaucracy as well as the public. And it's really crazy that point is not made publicly, because it's certainly appreciated in private. They just can't say it.
They can't say it?
Yeah. I mean, people at the very top, they don't want transparency for a variety of reasons. But at the rank and file, that's well understood that, FBI has its own. I mean, the number of duplicative roles that these agencies have, a counter disinformation, presence within the CISA agency and Department of Homeland Security, in DOD, in CIA. I mean, all of this and human, let's say, confidential human sources. Border Patrol has its own, FBI has its own, DIA has its own, CIA has its own, and ne'er the three shall meet. They don't communicate. They all have their own standards and things for how they handle it. Does it need to have 16,000 different systems like that? I mean, none of this stuff is even discussed because of the secrecy around it all.
There's parts of it that in conducting an investigation that I understand, right? Like if you have some crazy source or whatever, you don't want too many cooks in the kitchen. But then it's a slippery slope to that then being used as like the blanket excuse for anything that's like, well, we'll have too many cooks in the kitchen if we get this piece of information or that information. And
there's ways you can talk about it where you minimize the specifics, but then can give people general information, which is just refuse to do.
Right. Now, if you're going to steel man it, I don't know if I'm using that term correctly there, but bear with me here, and like look at it from the perspective of the people who want total secrecy. And this is also the danger to it too. They look at like our quote unquote enemies, like look at China or something like that. And they're like, well, they're fucking communists. They not only do they not share anything, they kill anyone who says the wrong thing. Like, we have to play on the same level as them at least when it comes to our personal information. Our people don't need to know about that. But then it gets dangerous because instantly somewhere that gets into some sort of constitutional violation or something that literally makes you the thing that you hate. It's this very weird catch-22 that they play with. And I don't have the right answer for all of them, but like to your point, there has to be some level of like, all right, we can actually tell people this. Maybe not the day it happens, but we can tell them 2 months later and we'll deal with it.
Look at the meltdown on the part of I see about the JFK stuff being declassified half a century later, and they're still complaining about sources and methods. It's like, guys, if you're going to do that about this, how can I believe anything that you say?
Thank you guys for checking out this clip. If you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe and hit the like button on this video. It is a huge, huge help. And if you'd like to check out this clip's full podcast episode, that link is in the description below or right here. And finally, you can follow me on Instagram and X by using the links in my description below.